Yeah. So up next, the album "Them Versus You Versus Me" comes out. This is a game-changing album. The first single, "Paralyzer." It's one of the most successful Canadian songs of all time. And I gotta read this sheet very quickly. Some of these stats. So it spent 52 weeks on the charts, which at the time was a record. Number one in Canada and the US, featured in Band Hero, Guitar Hero. The single has sold 3.4 million copies in the US, which is massive. And just recently passed 100 million spins on Spotify. So it's crazy. What does that song mean to you? And could you have ever imagined what kind of a global impact a single song could have?
No, no. I mean, the song means everything to us. I mean, we're very aware and thankful that that song has become probably our legacy. Like, you know what I mean? And in many ways, it's become bigger than our band will ever become. You know, the band now is attached to the song that's gone to the stratosphere, but the name of the band is, you know, attached to it. Where before all our songs were attached to the name of the band, you know, and this is just complete game changer. But no, I mean, like, again, when we wrote that song, there was no question we knew we'd written something in our own universe that was special. You know, again, we felt that way about other songs and they didn't do what we thought they would do, or people didn't react the way we thought they would react. But with this song, we were again in a situation where we had the demo. We knew, like, if I put the demo on at a friend's party and no one even knew I switched the music, the place would erupt and dance. Do you know what I mean? Like, the song had a thing. Everybody that heard it wanted to hear it again. It just had a thing to it. And the label was psyched. It was the first time we'd ever put a record out with a label that was wind up being like, okay, we have it. Like, we have the song. Like, there was a plan because we have the song. Radio is waiting for it. I think for me, the biggest relief about Paralyzer initially was because one thing had become so massive and was such a out of our wheelhouse kind of song. The music fan in me was like, we're running the risk of becoming a one-hit wonder for a song that really isn't what the band was historically, you know? And that's a high-class problem. But there was this feeling of like, I want it to be more. I want people to know more about this band than just this one acoustic ballad song. And when we wrote Paralyzer, I think there was that feeling of like, oh man, we're maybe a two-hit wonder band. And that's a little bit better than being a one-hit wonder band. You know, there was this feeling of like, we might actually come out with a follow-up to this song that was bigger than anything we'd ever expected. And then, to be honest, when it got released, I mean, yeah, it was crazy. That was the most, like, this is a rock ride. Like, holy moly. Like, you know, like, that was a goodbye sleep, goodbye everything, you know, just like, we're going where this takes us. And it took us all around the world, all kinds of crazy places. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger in the statistic world, you know, just kept getting more and more spins and higher up the charts. Then I think for me, one of the craziest things was at some point it crossed over and it actually charted on the American R&B chart. And I don't think like it charted high, but it charted. And it was just like that.
It's
to me,
you,
was like,
you and Usher on that chart, I think.
You know what I mean? Like that's it. But to me, when you're in that moment and it's your song or, you know, your band's song, like it's hard. Perspective's a hard thing to maintain, you know? And when you hear these kind of things, like it cross over to R&B, you start thinking of other songs that do that. And you start thinking like, wow, this has that in common with, and that's one of the things that blows me away on Spotify now is there's like, it gets added into these playlists of like my all-time favorite songs. And someone put Paralyzer right there with it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, Sweet Home Alabama, sitting on the dock of the bay, Welcome to the Jungle, Paralyzer. But, you know, it's like, is that where it lives now? That's crazy to like that, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, the success of it was just, I mean, and you know, I'll tell you one time we were on the road for about 7 or 8 months and we came home and we all flew home and I rented a car at the airport. And that was a big deal for me. Normally I just get a taxi, but I was like, oh, I'll rent a car, I'll drive it home, you know? And I'm not joking, Paralyzer was playing on every single radio station on the radio, like a part of it. Like I was just, and it was like 4 radio stations. And I was like, because all my friends have been telling me, like, dude, I'm getting pretty close to getting sick of this song. It's on all the time, everywhere. And I was like, how could that be? Or, whatever. And when I got in the car and I was like, literally, there's no other song on the radio to listen to than Paralyzer, that was a big wow moment. That was like, I don't know what this is in store for us, because everything in our industry works retroactively. The payments come in months, years later, like everything, you don't just see the initial results when something has success. You never know how it's going to pan out. But it's been, for all of us as individuals, as a band, that song completely changed our lives.
And
Still does.
the cherry on top is, after 7 Juno nominations, that album takes down Rock Album of the Year. So that must be pretty special.
Finally got a Juno. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, that was a neat feeling for sure. That was pretty crazy. We definitely had one of those moments where we were like, everybody was proud for us. It was our moment. It was our night. There was a lot of like, way to go, Finger 11 kind of feeling in the room, because, like you said, it had been our 7th nomination. We'd been doing it for a lot of years at that point, and it was succeeding. Probably the nicest guy with the most like real, genuine happiness for our success was Jim Cuddy. Jim Cuddy was just genuinely like, guys, yeah. He was just like, he's like, you guys deserve this. Like, you've been following, you guys, seeing you've been working out for a long time, and you guys, this is a monster song, and it's doing really great. You guys, he just was genuinely like happy for us to see, and it was really cool. One of my favorite quotes was from Chad Kroeger. He when we were on tour with them for a couple of shows during that time, and we were on his bus, and he's like laughing. He's like, ha ha. He's like, you guys are gonna have haters now, because up to that point, the only people that really paid attention to our band were people that liked the band, right? He's like, this song is gonna be so big, you're gonna piss people off. And it was like, it wasn't much after that we started getting people telling us how much our band sucked or our music sucks, and it's like, and it's wild. It's like, that's another achievement. I never thought our band would be big enough to have haters. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, unfortunately for Chad Kroeger, he's one of the few people on the planet that can genuinely tell you what it's like to have haters, just because you're so good at what you do, and you figured out the formula to have hit after hit for decades, and you just become so big that it's almost a joke. Like, it's impossible how big this.
And I can honestly say, like,
they're awesome. I love Nickelback, man. I've seen them. Dude, I saw them before they were big, opening for Everclear way back in the day. I saw them once they were massive, with 3 Days Grace opening and Bush opening and Seether opening. I actually love Nickelback. So there you go. Confession of 2022. I'm a huge fan. There you go.
Well, their songs are undeniably massive hits, and their concerts are undeniably packed every night. So you can hate Nickelback if you want, but I can guarantee you Chad Kroeger doesn't care that you hate them, because all he cares about is the thousands and thousands of people that loved it. Do you know what I mean? And the one thing I gotta say about touring with all these bands, like, we tour with a lot of music, and I don't always love the bands that we tour with. I don't always love their music, but I can honestly say that if it's a shit band or a good band, the guys in the band love that band as much as you love your band. You know what I mean? They believe in their band as much as you believe in your band. You know what I mean? So you might not like what other guy's doing, but he's only doing it because that's what he thinks is how music should sound, how the world should be, and what, and if there's hundreds of thousands of people that love that, then you should be mature enough to be like, I don't hate the guy for it. You know what I mean? He should be, happy for the guy that he found out a way to express himself. But I don't know, people, it's always been the way though, man. Like, it's always been. I remember being a Chili Pepper fan and no one knew who they were. And then all of a sudden, Under the Bridge came out and everybody knew who they were. And I had people who all of a sudden started hating them. And I was like, to me, that just means you never liked them in the first place, because you don't have that option to hate something just because someone else likes it. You know what I mean? If you didn't like it, anyways, yeah, Chad Kroeger gets a bad rap, but I don't know. I don't think he cares.
Haters be hating. I wanted, before we move on to the final 2 albums, I was just curious how Paralyzer was written. Did it start with that catchy guitar riff? Did it start with the lyrics? Was it the concept of kind of that dance club awkwardness? How did it form?
You know what? It was a total accident. Paralyzer was a total accident. We at that point we were writing all the time, every day. We were getting together in a van, driving to jam space, jamming 5 to 10 hours, driving home, going out the next day. So this particular day we got in the van. I don't remember why, but the vibe was real shit. We were pissy with each other. Someone was late. I can't remember what the reason. We got there. We set up our stuff. We tried to write. We're writing music, and it was just not happening. We were just totally in a shitty mood. So we're like, you know what? Let's just call it. Like we have no problem doing that. We're not really clock punchers. So if it's not there, it's not there. So we're packing up our stuff, and we forgot. We told our buddy Chris Bowman that he could come up and take photos of the session. And literally, we're walking down the stairs with our gear, and he pulls in, and we're like, so we're like, Chris, come on. The plan originally was to do like a photo shoot around the place. We just said, listen, well, we're just going to set up here and jam for like a half hour, and you can take photos. That'll be this photo shoot. And in that half hour, that's what we wrote, Paralyzer. And I think we only wrote it because we were fucking around and we were not taking it serious on any level. So we basically wrote the riff. The riff originally started sort of like a Slayer thing. Like it was like, it was like that kind of like double time thing. And then somewhere in the jamming, it got to that. And then we just sort of came up with the verse as like chords to play so we could go back to the other thing, But we came up with the pre-chorus, the chorus, and the verse in that half hour. The weirdest thing was that we almost didn't record it. We just, because at that point we were writing so much music, we were just like, oh, there's another thing, and it's sort of silly. So we almost didn't record it. I think it was Rich that was like, we should at least throw this down quick. We did a live take of it, and we sent it to Scott. And I think within a couple of days, he wrote all the melody and the words like as they are, because it gave him that dance vibe. He being himself and being a songwriter and a lyricist like he is, he wanted to tell a unique experience. So he told his own experience of how awkward dance clubs are. You know what I mean? So, and then when we heard that back, we're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then, I think also at the time there was that massive trend of like Franz Ferdinand and like dance rock was sort of really a thing. So it fit right in with that sort of act. Like I think that was more of an accident, but it definitely fit in there. And then that was it. And as soon as the label heard the demo once, it was just like that happened. That happened super fast and super accidental. And it just, once we had it, we felt like we had something. But it wasn't really until Scott came up with the words that we thought the music was special. We knew the riff was catchy, but I don't think we thought it was going to be like it is, like where people sing it all the time.
So this friend that was late for the photo shoot, have you bought him like a bottle of champagne or something for forcing that jam?
We're still friends with him. He's just Bowman. I don't know. We just actually, I think we joke about it all the time, but he's pretty sure he doesn't know where on a hard drive somewhere that he has photos of us writing Paralyzer, which now they'd be interesting. Like at the time, it was just a copy dated pictures, but now he literally has photo documented moments of us writing the riffs for Paralyzer. So cool to have those things. But yeah, no, we're friends with Bowman. Bowman's still a really good friend to all of us.
That's awesome. The world owes Bowman a debt of gratitude.
Yeah. He gets a shout out every time for sure.
Amazing. So before we wrap up with the final two albums, I want to talk about your bass player, Sean, give him a little bit of love. So listening to the discography with the good headphones on, it became apparent to me that the bass is actually something special in Finger 11. It's not just doubling the guitar. It like carves out its own little space. And there's these like tasty, memorable riffs. And I actually took note of some songs. So to me, the bass was amazing in songs like Costume for a Butterball, Shudder, Quicksand, Drag Me Down, Complicated Questions, Good Times, Falling On, Living in a Dream. The bass to me was a very integral part of those songs. What are your thoughts on what Sean brings to the table, and maybe he's super underrated as a bass player, because I was very impressed hearing everything as a whole.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say Sean is underrated as a bass player and as a person. Sean's one of the greatest human beings to ever live. Man. He's our backbone. Like, he is our from day one. I mean, he's always been like our father, even though he's not that much older than us. But he's our CEO in our band. Like, he's our business leader. He's our accountant. He's our manager. Like, he's so much behind the scenes. But as a bass player, he's amazing. He's like, there. I think over the years, he's been probably pressured more than anybody else to try and get it to change his style from either producers, could be me and James, constantly trying to get him to like play with a pick, or back in the day we wanted him to slap bass all the time, and he's a finger fucking monster, but the tone in his fingers is insane, and the speed that he can play, and not just that, his melodies and his bass lines, they're always been special, and that's something that I think is one of my favorite dynamics about our band is the two guitars and the bass. They always are. They're in unison as far as like the world they're living in, but we're always trying to make up different pieces of that world. And Sean has always been just that constant big thing, but like he's a bass player's bass player, right? Like he's sort of like I was saying, Scott's not really a musician who sits around with an acoustic guitar or piano and say, he's a vocalist, loves to sing, loves to write. Sean is a bass player. He's a bass player. He can play the guitar, but he doesn't sit around trying to learn how to play guitar. He sits around getting better at bass and learning bass lines and learning how to do bass. And I'm so happy for that, because that's what a lot of bands, their bass players are just guitars that didn't fit in or something, where someone just picks it up almost like a necessity, where it's a passion for Sean. I think it comes through in his playing. And his idols too, he comes from that school of like, Bill Wyman and like John Onwhistle and those guys that like had those dynamic guitarists but still needed a way to fit into the song and stand out, with their parts. I think Sean does that really well.
I'd like to rapid fire through a couple fan questions. I know they'd be disappointed if we didn't get to them. So one of them is from Jesse Bartholomew from the Finger 11 Facebook group. He says, I'd ask him if he could sit down and jam with anyone, living or deceased, who would it be? And how often does he get his hair caught in his strings? LOL.
My hair gets caught in my, you know what it gets caught in? It gets caught around the strap nut lock there. Like the strap, like my straps are like screwed right into my guitar with a washer. There's no little thing you put the strap on. It's just flush against the coat, but my hair always gets stuck in the washer, pulls. I put my teeth in my guitar a few times. In my black strap, there's a dental impression on my front two teeth, right in my guitar. So my guitar has damaged my body many times. I think Neil Young would be my answer. I would love to be in a room with Neil Young, and I don't care if we jam or just smoke a joint, but I'd love to be there. Neil Young, I think he'd be the most fun to jam.
Amazing. I've been a judge for the Juno Awards. I've worked the Junos before, and normally I'm not starstruck, but one year I was working the Junos, and my job was to move the celebrities from where they arrive to their own room, and then taking them on stage when they're performing or on TV. And at one point, I was in a room. I turn around and I was right here with Neil Young. I just didn't get a heads up that Neil Young was there. Right. So I turned right into Neil Young, and there's Neil Young. And you think of just the musical history, like going back in time to everything this man has done, the world that shifted around him. I remember hearing Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. They said that between all of them, they had written 800 songs, and 500 of them were just Neil Young. So that's my little moment of being in the same room.
I've never even been in the same room with him. He's my idol. Like, just not just his songwriting and his playing, but his approach on how to be a musician and how to exist in the music industry. Like I think everything about him is pretty fascinating.
Being authentic to himself and doing things for the
Yeah.
love of music and
Yeah.
not taking shit from anybody. So one more fan question. So this is from Megan Port. She says, what struck me about seeing them in concert was the opening acts were so energetic, and then Finger 11 came on and they had such a powerful presence that commanded the room. How would you say your performances have changed from when you first started in the band?
Um, well, I think at the very beginning, especially Butt Monkeys, it was just like unbridled energy. Like we didn't even know how to control it. It was literally just like you know atoms bouncing around a stage. It was just craziness, and it was manic, chaotic. I think over time we found a way to like control all that energy and be more deliberate in our performances. And there's been we've had a few breakthroughs over the years of mental breakthroughs, so you realize something early. We also got a chance to a lot of the years we were opening for Creed and Evanescence, and so we were getting to like learn how to be a band, but on stadium-sized stages. So we had room to stretch out and literally do that kind of stuff. We had to fill up the space somehow because we didn't have backdrops and we didn't have scrims and we didn't have stage gear. We had to fill up all these big stadium stages with our bodies, our movements. So over the years, we definitely have found a way to get more deliberate with our performances. Um, and then now I think it's just a natural flow of energy and performance. I think it's just now it's just become what we do and how we, like, I don't think we think much about it. I think we look forward to it. None of us ever get nervous. It's our favorite place to be. It's the place I feel most comfortable in the world. So I enjoy being up on stage.